Dr. Alvin Camba. Hello, sir.
Hello, yeah, it's evening here.
Opo.
Evening po.
Sorry ha. At salamat sa iyong panahon, Alvin, sa aming programa. Tanong ko lang, kasi nga nagkaroon ka ng artikulo tungkol nga dito sa Pogo industry. Una, ang pinakamainam na katanungan sa ngayon, sa gitna nitong mga nangyayaring kontrobersya, na kung saan siguro nababalitaan mo na marami mga race na nangyayari ngayon, ang sinasabi ng PAGCOR, na kapag daw nagkaroon ng total ban sa Pogo sa Pilipinas, baka lalong mag-underground ang Pogo operations. Anong tingin mo doon?
That's probably true. But I think it's less of a para sa akin, it's less of a question of whether they go underground or not. It's a question of where can the government manage them better. So we have to understand during Duterte it was legalized, but there were also a lot of legal operations, and even when they were legalized, there were a lot of hidden pogos within the legalized pogos. So the way the Pogo system works, it's not just, let's say, legal companies operating in the Philippines. These legal companies are able to lend their licenses to illegal companies. So it's a way of saying that even during the Duterte administration, there were a lot of illegal Pogos that we did not know anything about. And that's mainly because the legal regulations or the licenses that PAGCOR gave these legal Pogos were actually lent to illegal Pogos. So it's another way of saying kahit illegal na yon at kahit madaming raids, it's not necessarily worse. It's probably true there will be more raids, but at the same time, it's a way of stopping the industry and it's a way of limiting the harmful effects of POGOs.
You mentioned in your article, Alvin, na meron palang mga Pogo operators na nakakuha nga ng mga permit sa SEC and then PAGCOR, pero ito ay nagiging lisensya ng mga iba pang Pogo operators. Can you elaborate on that sa iyong artikulo? Na para bagang kabit system? Go ahead.
Sige po. Yeah, ganun. So that's how the Pogo system works. So a company, for instance, just an example, Oriental Gaming, which is a which is an online gambling company that up until now operates. Once it gets a license, it becomes what you call a facilitation company. Once it's a facilitation company, it can invite other Pogos. It becomes what you call a micro gaming company, a micro Pogo hub. Then it can invite 10 to 20 other companies, and these 10 to 20 other companies can operate within the facilities of this legal Pogo company. And this is basically what happened during the Duterte administration. There were around 2 to 300 legal Pogos, but within the 2 to 300, you also had, I would say, 500 to 1,000 other companies operating within the facilities of these legal ones. And that was also terrible. It was, and to be honest, like there were 500,000 to 1 million legal, illegal, semi-legal Chinese citizens and other citizens from other countries operating in the industry. And if you start to look at the illegal and the criminal activities during the Duterte administration, it was really, really widespread. So right now, where we've actually limited the influence of Pogos, there are more raids, and it's true that we're actually trying to go after them. But at the same time, I think it's better compared to what was happening during the Duterte. And it's really just hard to root out Pogos. I mean, after all, you have a lot of like corrupt people in the police, in the different parts of the government industries. People are going to be bribed one way or another. But so long as they're running away and so long as things are being hard for them, then it's probably going to be better.
Okay, ano ba ang dahilan sa iyong kaalaman at pag-aaral kung meron man, bakit ang offshore gaming, ay ipinagbabawal sa ibang mga bansa at sa atin lamang? Ang ibang nga yata dito nagdagsaan nga sa atin dahil ipinagbawal na sa ibang mga example Asian countries or even China.
Yeah, sige po. Unang-una kasi the operations are called offshore gaming, but the activities per se are not exactly offshore gaming. During the Duterte administration, it was through something called online gambling. And even though it was online gambling and offshore gaming, if you look at the activities that these companies are doing, it was illegal. it was scamming people out of their money, where they usually operate by trying to trick Chinese gamblers into gambling within China, trying to get them addicted into gambling. And once they're addicted, these people are gonna end up betting like hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of USD. And then afterwards, when they lose like these particular transactions, money is going to be transferred, and these people are going to be scammed out of their savings, out of their livelihoods. Since 2021, 2022, online gambling slash offshore gaming, the business model has transitioned from targeting Chinese citizens into targeting everybody else in the world. So ito yung tinatawag na scam compounds, where many of these like companies, what they do is they facilitate romance scams and investment scams. They pretend to be somebody else, a person that, let's say, somebody in North America, somebody from here meets online. Afterwards, this when the scam happens, where the person falls in love with the scammer, this person is gonna transfer. The victim is gonna transfer money to the scammer, and usually once it's transferred, it can't be taken back anymore. So it's impossible to regulate the Pogo industry. Like we don't have enough regulators, and we don't have enough people to know what's really happening inside. And then more importantly, they don't have the know-how, the skills, and the capacity to really understand money laundering, to really understand sort of the complicated activities of like many of this like companies. So it's a way of saying that it's impossible to regulate the sector. It's too much money. It's too complicated, and that's why in other countries they've resorted to banning this like companies. But in the Philippines, during the Duterte administration, it was allowed precisely because of the close linkages of Rodrigo Duterte to many of the criminals in this or slash investors in the sector. Now, so that's the reason why it was allowed. And what were the other reasons? Well, it's millions of dollars. It's a lot of money. So it was a way for local partners, in this particular case, people working with Duterte, to actually gain, millions, possibly billions of pesos from this industry.
So again, to be straightforward to my point, no,
Yeah.
if this is earning then for some politicians, no, and perhaps corrupt officials of government, bakit sa Cambodia wala nito ngayon? Bakit
Uh,
sa
uh,
meron ba sa
uh,
Cambodia, sa Vietnam, or even Thailand or Malaysia? Bakit ang Pogo parang why are they flooding the Philippines, no? Hindi sa mga itong mga bansa na dati pagkakaalam ko may Pogo din pero mukhang pinagbawal na. Go ahead.
Oh, Sir Philon. That's technically not true. So, um, historically, between 2016 and 2019, and so I guess number one is that you may call it Pogo, but the operations per se is not exactly Pogo. It's not exactly offshore gaming. It's what you
Oh,
call online fraud. Whether it's
okay.
gambling or scamming, that's the same sort of operation, right?
Okay.
Now, between 2016 and 2019, the centers of online fraud were the Philippines and Cambodia. But in 2019, Cambodia supposedly made it illegal, and then many of these companies transitioned from online gambling to scamming operations. In the Philippines, we continued it. Rodrigo Duterte said no to China when China demanded the sector to be shut down. But during the pandemic, the sector actually diminished because the Chinese government made gambling really difficult within China. So the online gambling sector in the Philippines actually moved to Laos, Myanmar, and more heavily into Cambodia. So Cambodia tells people it's illegal, but Cambodia actually is one of the scamming capitals in the world alongside Myanmar. In fact, we actually call Cambodia precisely because of the precisely
Oh.
because of the economy run literally by criminals, not the entire economy, but a good part of it. And then even in other Southeast Asian countries, you have a lot of illegal pogos. In Malaysia, it's really big. The same in Vietnam. The same in like even Indonesia and Thailand. So we released a recent report with the United States Institute of Peace. It's a U.S. Congress organization where we studied every Southeast Asian country, and then what we found out is that the center of the online gambling and scams are actually Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos, and the Philippines is more secondary right now, precisely because of the pandemic and precisely because of the moves of the Marcos administration.
Okay, so kasi sa Cambodia, dagsa nga din doon ang iba yatang recruitment ng mga Pilipino, di ba? Kung naalala mo, Angel, meron mga nahuhuli din na kumbaga biktima ng human trafficking because nga itong mga scam hub na ito diyan sa lugar na iyan.
Yep.
So ngayon, Alvin, misnomer na ito. So to speak, practically ito ay internet scam hub kumbaga sa ngayon.
Yes, sir. Even during when it was called online gambling, that was also a scam, except the scams were targeting Chinese gamblers. But since the pandemic, because the Chinese government became strict, the business model changed. It now targets everybody else in the world, including those in North America. And most recently, thousands of Filipinos and Indonesians, Malaysians, Vietnamese are being lured into Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos into operating, into working in these facilities. Now, we also have them in the Philippines, the scam hubs, but they're usually called Pogos. And that's why we try to raid them as much as possible, and we try to criminalize them. We try to stop them. However, it's obviously very difficult because no matter where you go, people can be paid.
Nagpalit na Pagcor changed its name from Pogos to IGL. From Philippine Offshore Gaming Operators, ngayon IGL na. Internet Gaming Licensee. Anong take mo doon?
It doesn't change anything, obviously. Even before, if I could be honest, Sir Philon, even before it was called Pogo, there were already online gambling companies in the country. I think they were around during the Arroyo administration. They were in the special economic zones, and they were under I think what's his name, Filipino oligarch Roberto Ongpin. Although Ongpin limited it to domestic companies, not online Chinese syndicates. Now, I think despite changing the name, it's not going to change anything. The real essence of profiteering in the industry is really internet fraud or online fraud. Whether we call it Pogos or internet gaming licensee doesn't really change the way that the sector works.
Okay. So now, the debate is still ongoing. It's fresh. Whether we stop it totally, we ban it totally, or hayaan na lang daw yung mga legal. Ang claim ng Pagcor, they are earning last year daw 5 billion in license fees. The government says nakakumita sila ng mga 8 billion, although malayo yan doon sa kanilang projection. So itong pinag-uusapan ng iba, sinasabi, kumikita naman ng gobyerno. Baka ito'y magbunga ng additional taxes kung mawawala itong perang ito. What's your take on that? Bilang isa sa mga sumubaybay sa isyong ito at bilang isa rin sa mga nagtuturo, I think, tama ba ako, Alvin? Nagtuturo ka ba rin ng economics?
Yeah, so I teach political economy here at Denver University. I teach Chinese political economy, including Chinese illicit capital inflows, which refer to online gambling partially and scam compounds.
Oo.
Pero
ito Alvin, I hope you don't mind may mga
Yeah,
nanonood ngayon sa atin dito sa ating Facebook page at saka sa YouTube na sinasabi baka daw pwede kang mag-Filipino para na mas maintindihan daw nila kung mamarapatin mo. Go ahead.
Sige po, subukan ko po. So may sinasabi din parang kumikita nga ang gobyerno pero unang-una yung corruption din mataas din kasi yung reported amount ng government agencies including Pagcor, that's usually an underestimation of what they're really earning. So I guess it's a way of saying that kahit marami silang kinikita, marami ring nakokorrupt na pera kasi hindi transparent ang accounting system ng online gambling or scam compounds, number one. Number two, hindi maganda na kumikita ang Pilipinas sa criminal na activity, especially lalong-lalo na ang ganitong activity ay sinisira nito ang lives of let's say I would say tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people across the world. Ayun yung pangalawa. Pangatlo, the more na kumita ang sector na ito, whether it's scam compounds or online gambling, the more na nagiging makapangyarihan ang mga kriminal. So think about it as we don't want, hindi natin gusto ng isa pang agent. In this particular case, it's another actor that becomes as powerful, if not more powerful than government. And then itong mga criminal na enterprises magiging mas makapangyarihan sa gobyerno, and sila na ang magdidikta sa gobyerno kung ano ang dapat gawin. Tingnan natin yung kaso ni Alice Guo sa Bamban.
Oo.
Yung mga police officers under her na I would say na they got fired or they got suspended recently. I don't know what happened to them. Isipin natin na naging protection force ito sa Pogo, sa online gambling. Ganon din nangyari sa PNP or maraming police officers during Duterte. As a way of making money, many PNP officers started to act as bodyguards for sa mga companies na ito. So, it's a way of saying na kahit kumita Pilipinas, napakaraming negative effects. At ang pinaka-importante, ang pinaka-importante para sa akin is pag nag-focus tayo sa online gambling as if it's a legitimate economic sector, nawawala ng focus and yung focus sa ibang more legitimate government activities, let's say manufacturing, Filipino call centers for instance, hindi na siya nagiging focus ng government. Nagiging it would be online gambling and scam compounds. Yun nangyari po kay Duterte, which is like yung call center jobs bumaba, tapos yung jobs for online gambling tumaas. Nawawala yung legitimate jobs compared to illegitimate jobs. So ito ay criminal na activity, hindi ito maganda, at maganda sana kung ang Pilipinas ay palakasin ang the regulatory capacity of the state para ma-root out itong mga illegal activities na ito.
Sa iyo bang mga pag-aaral diyan o impormasyon na nakakalap sa iyong pagtuturo, meron bang effect sa pangkalahatang image na ng Pilipinas sa mga investors itong paglaganap ng mga scam hubs na ito gamit ang quote-unquote IGL now?
Ayun po yung nangyari during Duterte. So, yung call center, yung mga legitimate American call centers po, they were trying to get what you call floor spaces from buildings in Makati, Pasay City, Parañaque. Tapos, pag ang mga call centers po, karamihan, nakukuha nila 1, 2, 3 floors, tapos nag-establish sila ng operations. Yun nangyari po during Duterte, yung mga online gambling companies po, bumibili po sila ng 10, 5, even entire buildings to actually operate in. Tapos gumagawa sila ng compounds. So, they were basically crowding out the call centers, the Filipino business process outsourcing industry, number one. Number two, maybe not so much in the Philippines, but think about Cambodia and Myanmar. Ang Cambodia po, Myanmar po ay nasa civil war. And yung civil war po, matagal na yun sa Myanmar between the junta government and the ethnic organizations. Pero yung underneath the civil war would be the criminal enterprises, the Chinese criminal groups that are operating online gambling and scam compounds. They were basically fueling and funding both the ethnic organizations and the junta, and they're basically fueling the war. So hindi po sa Pilipinas immediately, pero tignan po natin sa ibang bansa, mas lumala na talaga ang kalagayan ng maraming bansa dahil sa online gambling or scam compounds. Isa pa po Cambodia. Sa Cambodia po, hindi po siya, inaral ko din po yung Cambodia, so kumuha po ako ng data, tinignan ko po ang papeles ng, let's say, investment registrations of Cambodian companies. Karamihan po ng Cambodian companies, ang pagmamay-ari po ay either the Hun Sen family or a friend of the Hun Sen family. Now, hindi po ganyan ng Pilipinas. We have an independent business sector comprised of Filipino business elites. And they're independent from the government. Pero ang problema po, pag nagkaroon ng criminal enterprise, tapos nagkaroon ng malaking sindikato in the government that's fueled by the Chinese enterprises, it might turn the country into basically a Cambodia, which is really bad because Cambodia po is known to be it's known to be a land, a country that the criminal enterprises have a lot of power in. At hindi po natin gusto mangyari sa Pilipinas yan.
Okay, sige. Ito panghuli na lamang bago si Angela. Ano ang dapat na gawin ngayon ng Pangulong Marcos dito sa isyung ito? Naharap siya sa panukala ng total ban habang sabi naman ng PAGCOR ay huwag hayaan lang ang mga legal, maging ang ilang mga mambabatas na panig sa pagkor. Anong tingin mo?
Dapat po para sa akin total ban po. Kasi po yung stance po ni Pangulong Marcos na yon is ay hayaan na lang ang mga the POGOs that are legal right now, and then let's limit the new companies coming in. Ang problema po the number one, pag hinayaan po ni Marcos if Marcos pursues the status quo of allowing the legal online gambling companies to continue, masasabihan po siya na hipokrito po siya. Kasi yung mga existing companies po na legal, yung iba po sa kanila ay connected sa mga tao sa government, sa Marcos government right now. So pag nag-total ban po siya, mapapakita po niya sa mga tao, sa mga Pilipino na hindi po siya hipokrito, wala siyang favorites, and then his policy stances are consistent. It doesn't matter who owns these companies. Yun po yung unang-una. Pangalawa, marami po sa mga legal Pogo companies, yung mga legal po na yun, again, like what we said at the start of this show, they act as facilitation hubs for the illegal Pogo companies. So mahirap po ma-remove ang mga illegal companies kung meron po tayong legal companies na yon, kasi nabibigyan po sila ng yung mga legal companies po, they can be a legal cover for the illegal companies. Yun po yung pangalawa. Pangatlo, ang magandang gawin na lang po ni Pangulong Marcos is mag-focus po siya sa manufacturing jobs sa Philippine call centers, sa rooting out corruption, inviting, I would say, legitimate investments in the country to actually generate economic growth. Yung POGOs po kasi, or itong online gambling firms or scam compounds, it's a quick fix of getting a lot of money. Pero hindi po siya long-term sustainable development strategy.
Okay, opo. Sige nga, kasi pag wala nang maloko itong mga scammers na ito, di
Mauubusan din yan.
mawawalan din sila ng negosyo na. O sige, panghulit tanong po.
Actually, sir, kung mag-add po ako ng one thing, sa marami po sa Southeast Asia, na yun, nag-focus po let's say the US right now, we focus on like Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. Pero marami po itong mga scammers to, mga criminal, they're moving out of Southeast Asia. Iba po sa kanila nasa Dubai, Middle East, kung saan po mga Pilipino nagtatrabaho din po doon. Some of them are found in Peru, in Brazil, in Africa. So, lumilipat po sila sa maraming different parts ng mundo. Pero yun nga, hindi po dapat natin hayaan dito sa Pilipinas, kasi if we open it up once again, we might become another Cambodia, and that's not really good for the Philippines.
Okay. Pahabol lang po.
Pahabol lang. Actually, nasagot na nga halos lahat ni Professor yung aking mga ilang katanungan. No? Pero siguro, despite na lang po nga nitong mga illegal activities at saka mga current social impact na nararanasan po natin ngayon under itong mga illegal POGOs na to, bakit po kaya sa tingin nyo natatagalan ng PH leadership on outright banning ito pong POGOs? Of course, isang tabi na po natin yung sinasabing economic contributions.
So one of the things I said, ma'am, which is the legal, yung iba pong legal POGOs, may partners po ito ng ibang miyembro ng Marcos administration. So it's a way of saying that there is favoritism amongst the companies in the industry, and the most connected companies were the ones least affected by the government's like regulatory apparatus. So that's yung pa yung isang reason. Yung pangalawa is I would say hindi po gusto ni Marcos gumawa, hindi po sigurado si Marcos kung ano po dapat gawin, kasi potential supporters po yung dalawang panig, whether it's outright ban or let's let the legal companies continue. So maybe because of political considerations, it's really hard to make a decision. So ayun po yung I would say, in my view, that's what he's thinking. But the more dangerous thing po sa Pilipinas is if a new president comes in, specifically if the president is pro-China, possibly they're gonna open the sector once again. That's
Alvin,
dangerous.
Alvin, ano binabanggit mo na may connection sa gobyerno itong nasa Pogo? Are you at liberty to tell us? Baka may alam ka na hindi namin alam.
I would just say, sir, I would be like, I would be more hesitant to actually open it here. But I would just say, like, one of the big POGOs actually, it is they're operating on a land, and I think this is well known in some places. They're operating in a land that was previously sold by a department secretary within the Marcos administration. So there is some connection there.
Okay.
And I would say some of the companies, there is some indirect connection as well.
Okay.
But this company compared to the Dutertes is really, they're just a speck, right? During the Duterte, ang dami talaga, and
Okay.
mas malalaki pa.
Sige. Okay. So Alvin, thank you. What time is it now there? Anong oras na?
Nasa LA po ako. It's 6:42.
In the evening.
Apa.
Ay, salamat naman at dinner time pa
June
lang.
11.
Sige. Alvin, salamat na marami ha. Opo, at looking forward to see you. At sana nga ay mabigyan mo kami ng ilang mga impormasyon sa ginagawa mong patuloy na pag-aaral sa isyong ito. Salamat, Alvin.
Sige pa.
Thank you. Si Alvin Camba na ngayon po ay nandoon sa Los Angeles.
Ted Filon at DJ Chacha. Ngayon, nasa Radyo 5, 92.3 News FM. Monday to Friday, 6 to 10 a.m.